Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This morning, I'm going to be reacting to the Badab War Part 5, the Betrayal at Grief, Warhammer 40,000 lore made on the Oculus Imperia YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out my reaction to the other parts of the Badab War, remember that the reaction playlist card is going to be at the top right here for the Warhammer 40k content created by YouTubers. If you want to check out the original video as well as Oculus Imperia's YouTube channel, remember that the links are in the description below. Yes, the war for the Maelstrom Zone is in full swing. The Firehawks and the Marines Errand chapter they've been given a very bloodied nose, if I can say that. Well, in terms of the Marines Errand chapter, they've lost their chapter master. I remember that. They lost their chapter master. It was a big defeat for them against the separatist forces. So it's not looking good for the Marines Errand chapter. It's not looking good for the Firehawks. It's not looking good for the Carthan shipping cartel. They have lost multiple fleets of vessels to the separatist forces, while Lufgt Huron and his separatist forces are gaining even more territory, in the proximity of the Maelstrom Zone. The Sagan sector has been taken over by them. They have solidified their dominance and authority in the Maelstrom Zone, and now the High Lords of Terror have taken note of this. They've sent the Legate Centurium to go and investigate what's happening in the Maelstrom Zone, and they have come back with orders of censure against the separatist forces. And I don't think Lufgt Huron, he didn't accept any notion of surrender. He did not accept any notion of letting down their weapons and having them to be investigated by the Imperium of Man's organizations, or should I say the interdepartmental groups within the Imperium of Man government. So yes, it's a full-scale war. I've said this before that Lufgt Huron is ready for this. He knows the Maelstrom Zone like the back of his hand. He's prepared. In terms of the loyalist forces, or the forces of the Imperium of Man, I don't think they're ready for what's coming. I just don't think they're ready for what's coming in the Maelstrom Zone. Just like the Marine Errants chapter and the Firehawks, they are going to be given a bloody nose. Will it be a complete knockout? No. Because now I think the entire weight of the galaxy is going to bear on the Maelstrom Zone. And I'm afraid having 4 chapters, what are the chapters again? What are the chapters? It's the Astral Claws, the Lamenters, the Mantis, as well as the Executioner chapter. Yeah, these 4 chapters are just not enough against the entire galaxy. So I'm not sure how many chapters of Astartes are coming to the Maelstrom Zone, but I think it's going to be a lot of them, and it's going to be the entire weight of the Imperium of Man, politically and militarily, on the Maelstrom Zone. So it's going to be a good fight, but one that I predict the Maelstrom Warders are going to lose eventually. It's just a matter of time. And the civilians, they will be caught in the crossfire between these two very powerful organizations as they destroy themselves. Yeah. Okay, let us continue now with part 5. 3, 2, 1, go.
It is a truism, when speaking of warfare, that when brother meets brother upon the field of battle, that marks a nigh impossible return. It is even more so when the brothers in question are members of the Adeptus Astartes. Space Marines lay dead in the Maelstrom Zone, slain by other Space Marines. In the annals of Imperial history, such deaths have often presaged times of wanton destruction and grand misery. And many who saw the rising tides of escalation in the Maelstrom Zone desperately strove to bring about some form of calm to the hostilities, hoping, even at this stage, that peace and compromise, as the Imperium understands such concepts, could be snatched from the jaws of a full-scale civil war.
No, that's not possible. Especially when you're dealing with people who are emotionally bred, or should I say, conditioned for war. It's almost impossible. You will have to be at their level or higher for them to actually listen to you and to decide that, you know what, maybe we should not go to war because this powerful individual or this person who's of a higher rank has told us so. If you're not at their level, anything you say is pointless.
They were, of course, wrong. The actions of the secessionists could not, publicly, go without reprisal, and the only forces capable of bringing recidivist Astartes to heel were, of course, other Astartes.
Down the barrel of a gun.
The pronouncement of the Terran legates necessitated the immediate mustering and deployment of a major force of Adeptus Astartes elements, drawn from any and all chapters present within the local galactic region, or who were willing to respond from further afield on short notice. Under the now concerningly commonly applied title of Loyalists, battle companies from the Salamanders, Fire Angels...
The Salamanders? Okay, wow.
...and Raptors chapters...
Wait, it was the Salamanders and which other chapter?
Under the now concerningly commonly applied title of Loyalists, battle companies from the Salamanders, Fire Angels...
Fire Angels. Okay.
...and Raptors chapters swiftly responded to the call for arms, joining a much larger number of the Astartes from the Red Scorpions, who formed the bulk of this initial muster. The surviving Marines Errant and Firehawks, however, were not ordered into this gathering of force. Mauled by the initial engagements of the Badab Schism, their conduct saw them subjected to orders of withdrawal from their present operations, to undergo investigations by the delegation of the High Lords of Terra.
I know for certain that the Firehawks are not going to like that. They are definitely not going to like the fact that they've been told to withdraw and, stand by to be investigated. Yeah.
The Marines Errant, who had suffered significant losses, needed little encouragement to do so, readily complying to the will of Terra and withdrawing from the Maelstrom Zone. The Firehawks, however, were not too prompt in their retreat. In what has entered into the annals of history as the firebombing of Sacristan, the chapter reaped one last act of vengeance, seen by some as righteous, but by most historiography as arrogant and extravagant. Kalian Urbeck, in their seminal work Observations upon a Schism, called the maneuver strategically bankrupt and demonstrably wasteful. But despite such apparently obvious considerations, Chapter Master Lazarek of the Firehawks was not to be denied. The surviving elements of the chapter's fleet, led by the wounded Star Fortress Raptorus Rex, closed in on Sacristan, a tiny sovereign colony at the edge of the Endymion cluster. There was quite genuinely nothing significant about this world, save for one factor. The Mantis warriors counted it amongst their vassal planets as a protectorate.
Let me guess, they're going to, terrorize the population, kill the population, just turn the entire planet to glass. They're going to kill civilians and then make it believe or make it sound as if it's some sort of victory. Fucking cowards.
Its meager orbital defense batteries were swept aside in barely an hour, and the planet was subjected to a series of targeted assaults by flyer-borne Firehawk squads, gorily slaughtering the colony's leadership in extremely public acts of savagery, before a full-scale withdrawal was called. When all Astartes had been successfully extracted, the Rapturous Rex hove into extremely low orbit and subjected Sacristan to a saturation bombardment of plasma bombs, igniting the atmosphere.
This chapter needs to be disbanded. This chapter needs to be disbanded. Their gene seeds locked up. All of the Firehawks need to be eliminated. That fortress, Rapturous Rex Star Fortress, has to be given to another chapter. They need to go.
This continued for several days and nights. By the time the Firehawks had deemed it time to make for their High Lord-appointed debriefing, over 90% of the planet's population lay dead. While the Firehawks slaked their vengeance with genocidal atrocities, the Loyalist muster was focused on the world of Josiah Quintus on the outskirts of the Carthago sector. Legate Inquisitor Jarndyce Frayne of the Ordo Hereticus, as voted representative of the Senatorum Imperialis, was nominally in operational command, but actual tactical command was granted to Verant Ortis, Lord High Commander of the Red Scorpions. It is common practice that
Lord High Commander. Must be the title of a chapter master.
When Astartes of several chapters are present in the same war zone, for them to elect amongst themselves a Magister Militum, a sort of first amongst equals, of equal rank to those of similar seniority, but in overall command for the sake of ensuring a robust chain of command and responsibility. Given the inherent difficulty in dealing with the notoriously independent Adeptus Astartes to begin with, Inquisitor Frayne was forced to accept this by sheer virtue of not making the situation any more fractious. Whatever about the near-sovereign nature of the chapters he commanded, Frayne was pitting them against ostensibly fellow Astartes who had literally claimed actual sovereignty. The Red Scorpions were a perhaps less than ideal chapter to be placed in a position of operational leadership.
Yeah, I would think maybe the Salamanders would be those who are in command of the overall forces of the Imperium of Man. Because not only do they have experience fighting against traitors, but they also have experience in making sure that civilians are not to be targets in a conflict. We need leadership that understands that yes, they are fighting against these separatist forces, but also human population centers cannot be used as targets or as traps to destroy the separatist forces. Yeah, I would have wanted the Salamanders to be taking the lead. But let's see what the Red Scorpions can do.
Even amongst the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, they carried a reputation for disregarding authority in favor of their own goals, born out of their own perception of staunch conservatism. Inquisitor Frayne had, of course, no actual weight in the decision to vote the Scorpions to their leadership role. Feeling his political capital best withheld, Frayne demurred. With ships from...
as an Inquisitor, you have to know when you can throw your weight. You can't just throw your weight anywhere you want and just think that people are going to obey you or they're going to cooperate with you, being as an Inquisitor. And I like the fact that this Inquisitor understands that. He knows his boundaries, he knows when to push, when to pull, when to let go and allow others just to do as they please, essentially. And it's also a form of control and manipulation, making sure that these Astartes remember what is their duty, what are they here to do, and as long as you keep to that, I'm not going to interfere. I'll be the the person who supports you the most. And I like the fact that this Inquisitor is acting in that type of way. He is not imposing himself on these Astartes and telling them what to do and how to kill their brothers. So yeah, that's good.
Battle Fleet Solar arriving to reinforce chapter fleet elements, the Loyalist forces identified their two primary goals. The first was, of course, the surrender of the secessionist chapters and their submission to the authority of the Imperial Legate. The second, and the one unstated on the propaganda reels, was to seek a robust re-establishment of commercial shipping within and out of the Maelstrom zone.
The Carthan shipping cartel will like that.
To ensure the Imperium's continued access to resource extraction operations within the volume. The first command, issued by Lord Commander Ortis as Magister Militum, was an immediate...
Hold on. Ortis. Okay.
Advance in force by the majority of the Red Scorpions and Battlefleet Solar ships into secessionist territory, to gauge levels of resistance and assess deployments. This had the immediate result of causing possibly the largest naval engagement of the war in its entirety, the Battle of Silent Reach in 4-011-906 M41.
Grief Death World. Okay. Original Anchorage Station. Galen. It's a fortress or frontier world. Okay, frontier world. And Savangard, fortress world.
Lamenter's fleet, seconded with cruiser squadrons from the Maelstrom Zone's Imperial Navy fleet, clashed heavily with the invading Loyalists in the dead void between the star systems of Galen and Grief. While fighting was heavy and quite brutal, it has been assumed by historians that neither side was willing to actually commit to the potential of losses at such an early stage in the campaign. Vir Av Kor, a naval chronicler for Battlefleet Solar, committed to posterity the work On Storm-Cast Tides, Discussions upon Fleet Engagements in the Badab Schism, within which he observed the tendency for both Loyalist and secessionist ships to probe, engage, and withdraw, and at distances that stretched even the ranges of Imperial warship fleet-based weaponry. Typically conducted at distances of thousands of kilometers to begin with, the void warfare in the Silent Reach battle was at an even more detached affair than usual.
I guess they were just trying to see who could blink first. Who will blink first? Who will take that first, risk to move closer to the enemy so that they can target and destroy them.
And ultimately, an inconclusive one. The only major loss was the Maelstrom Defense Fleet's lead battlecruiser, Gauntlet of Wrath. Having its bridge demolished by a lucky lance battery strike from the opposing cruiser Lady Sibylline, the leaderless Gauntlet fell out of formation with its escorts, immediately drawing the attention of the opportunistic Red Scorpion ships in the nearby volume. Hoving into close range, the Astartes ships engaged the battlecruiser in a short but lethal firefight, and despite the efforts of the Gauntlet's gunnery crews to devise some form of defense without centralized leadership, it was left a gutted and burning wreck before too long. The loss of the Gauntlet drove the secessionists into flight, their retreat to the warp marking the battle as a tentative Loyalist victory.
Well done to the Loyalists. Better luck next time for the Separatists.
Silent Reach was, however, merely the largest of a dozen naval engagements in the space of a relatively tiny space of time. Every one of Lord Commander Ortis's probing maneuvers elicited immediate responses. Taking the defensive tack, the secessionists were forced into a responsive position, allowing the Loyalists to fully check any advances that they were attempting to make in the early months of 906 M41. The Firehawks and the Marines Errant, having undergone thorough inquisitorial examination, had been cleared of suspicions of seditious or heretical inclinations, and rejoined.
Exterminating entire worlds or bringing them to the point of extinction without any valid military reason should be considered as heretical. I want the Firehawks gone. I want them gone. I want this entire chapter dismantled. They are a threat to humanity. They are not humanity's protectors. They need to go.
Joined the fight with all possible haste. Despite this, and the speed of the Loyalist advance, the Imperium had not made what could be considered any significant gains. No weaknesses had emerged from Ortis's initial moves. While the Master of the Red Scorpions had not necessarily been expecting any, it now behooved him to change his approach. The Inquisition, one keen eye placed upon the activities of the Astartes, had likewise shifted its investigations to the Carthan conglomerates.
Yikes. I thought they were left off scot-free, because they've always been wanting this assistance from the Imperium of Man, and, they are the victims in this entire situation. But now they're being investigated. Oh no.
Quickly establishing the culpability of Satrap Tanit Koenig, sector governor, for provoking the Badab schism in the first place. Koenig and her immediate family were summarily executed by the Ordo Hereticus for wanton misrule.
Well, it's not unfortunate. It's definitely not unfortunate. I really don't care much for these people who are in power. It's just surprising that it would happen so fast. Oh gosh.
While the punishment for the Carthan conglomerates was further extended. By writ of His Majesty's Divine Ordos, the 14 billion strong population of Sidon Ultra, headquarters of Carthan commerce, were committed en masse to indentured servitude, with a...
The whole planet? Imagine it. I don't know how many people are on that planet. It must be like billions. All of them are now in indentured servitude, just like that. That's crazy.
6-generational subclause, so that their lord's debts to the Imperium would be considered fully paid. The imperial tithe has been extracted from the Carthago sector by Administratum Rectification cadres, aided by the moral enforcement divisions of the Adeptus Arbites, for these past centuries.
Man, when the law might be very slow in the Imperium of Man, but once it catches up to you and it hits you with a mallet, you are dead. You are dead. There's no escape. There's no appeal. You're just dead. You're just squashed. Wow.
And is still considered an ongoing process generations later. Lord Commander Ortis selected the Viania system as the target of the next phase of Loyalist operations. The system was a focal point for many secondary warp corridors coreward into the deeper Maelstrom zone. But unlike the similarly transit-crucial Sagan system, Viania was more sparsely defended. Additional reports from Imperial intelligencers noted that the populace was in a state of significant unrest, owing to opposition to the tyrant of Badab's secession from the Imperium.
Oh, opportunity right here.
The possibility that this simmering loyalist discontent could be motivated into an open revolt was an opportunity for the Red Scorpions.
But don't be like the Firehawks, okay? Don't kill the civilians. Allow the civilians of that world to commence a revolution. Help them out by giving them guns and military information so that they can overthrow the Badab, or should I say the Maelstrom Warders forces on the planet. Use your soft power and you can win victory on that planet and in that system. If you're going to use violence, the civilians are going to turn against you and you'll be supporting the separatist forces. So don't be like the Firehawks. use your brains and formulate a plan that leads for the people to push this coup, and not you as the loyalist forces coming in there with tanks, with heavy machinery and Astartes to destroy their entire civilization. Yeah, be careful.
Zealous worshippers of the emperor that they were. The chapter was to lead the assault, supported by the Marines Errant and the Nova Marines, while the Raptors, newly arrived, supplemented the remaining Firehawks in escort operations for Loyalist supply lines. The attack was not nominally intended to capture the planet. The Adeptus Astartes could fulfill the role of conquerors, of course, but Lord Commander Ortis intended to use them as scalpel in this first big Loyalist push. The targets for the raids were the system's production infrastructure and shipping facilities.
Okay.
The secondary objective of kindling Loyalist sentiment into open revolt or sabotage. This was to be the first open warfare engagement of the escalated conflict, and saw the Adeptus Astartes loyal to Terra encounter Huron's reformed Badab sector defense forces for the first time.
Oh, the Tyrant's Legion. Okay.
The resistance of the latter was greatly underestimated by the Red Scorpions. They had not committed the forces needed to overcome the staunch discipline of the Tyrant's troops, taking only one of 4 intended orbital defense platforms and inflicting negligible damage to the planet's Manufactoria. Recompense was at least earned when Imperial reports on casualties reached the Lord Commander. The Tyrant's Legion, so called, were still unaugmented soldiery and were facing the Adeptus Astartes.
And we know how that's going to turn out.
Loyalists claimed a kill ratio of 178-1, with the last of their raids proving atrociously bloody for the Badabites. Viania still, however, remained contested, and the Loyalist objectives unfulfilled, as word now came of ill tidings.
Okay, but then in terms of Viania, like I stated before, let the people be the ones to revolt and commence a coup on the planet, and let them overthrow whatever forces that belong to the Maelstrom zone warders. Let them be fighting amongst each other and let the people defeat them. Don't use excessive force in the Viana system. Yeah. Let the people there deal with it, and they will win, and you won't have to spend so much resources in trying to take over that planet. But I like the fact that the Lord Commanders, targeted the factories and the shipyards in that system, and he did not go for the civilian centers. That's good.
In 115-906 M41, the warship Night Hag of the Executioners chapter scattered and destroyed several Loyalist military supply convoys, and the Loyalist fortress world of Serdengrad, deep in the Maelstrom zone, had finally fallen under Huron's control, despite its years of resistance to the Tyrant's maneuverings and later invasion. The relative impasse lasted until 3-390-906, when an unexpected proposal from Huron was delivered via emissary to the Imperial Magister Militum. The Tyrant offered Ortis a ceasefire, saying that bloodshed between loyal brothers should not continue.
Okay, alright. Is this a trap? Is this a trap? Why parlay right now? Why do this now? I'm watching you, Lufgt Huron. I'm watching you.
And he requested to parley. Legate Inquisitor Frayne protested this in the strongest of possible terms.
I would have done the same thing, because why would you want to parlay right now, when you could have done this way before? But you want to do it now, and you want the Lord Commander of the Loyalist forces to appear for negotiations.
Ortis only mollified the Inquisitor by offering his utmost reassurance that, even though he was agreeing to meet with a traitor, he would remain resolute in his utter commitment to carrying forward the judgment of the High Lords of Terra. The meeting would...
And that's why this meeting doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, because the orders coming from Terra is that the Maelstrom waters need to be eliminated. So what is there to talk about? What is there to talk about?
be face-to-face, conducted on an abandoned way station orbiting a gas giant, Shedim, in the uninhabited Grief system. The facility, a former naval supply depot, had lain dormant for centuries owing to stellar storms from the now highly active local star, retaining a mere fragment of its former atmospheric shell. It is verifiable in historiography that both parties agreed to, and held to, the initial terms of the meeting. A single, unescorted Astartes strike cruiser from both sides transported the respective delegations, who were flown to the asteroid by Thunderhawk gunships, with the strike cruisers laterally withdrawing out of weapons range as a show of good faith. It is likely the full account of what later transpired will simply never be known. The records concerning it have both been heavily damaged and heavily redacted, beyond the point of the influence of the Logos Historica Vertia to either unseal or revoke them. It appears that, despite the diplomatic tone of his entreaties, Huron in person was far less tactful, becoming indeed quite volatile.
I mean, he's never been one to be a negotiator or a political or diplomatic, Astartes leader. He's never been one to be any of that. I mean, considering how he has failed to galvanize attention to the problem in the Maelstrom zone, to the High Lords of Terra, how he has failed to have networking systems within the political apparatus of the Imperium of Man, so that they can have that direct attention to support the Maelstrom zone. He's not really good at that. He's not really good at being a speaker or a politician or a diplomat. He's not like the Kothan shipping cartel, how they were able to create a network supporting their push and their initiative in the Maelstrom zone. So I'm not really surprised that now, when he's having negotiation or a parley with the Lord Commander Ortis, it's not really going so well. I'm not really surprised about that. Yeah, he's a warrior. What he knows is strategy and killing and conquering. Yeah, and being a tyrant.
From surviving audio logs, it appears that Huron presented himself as a true upholder of the Lex Imperialis, speaking to Ortis as if the Red Scorpion and his kin were the seditious participants in
Wow.
this conflict. Flanking Huron, Chapter Master Sartak of the Mantis Warriors was likewise quite bullish, demanding the surrender of Lazarek of the Firehawks to the secessionists, that he may be brought to trial for his wanton genocidal crimes against innocent Imperial civilians.
As much as I want that to happen, oh my gosh, I want that to happen so badly, it's not going to happen, sadly. Because really, I want that chapter master's head on a plate. I want that Firehawk chapter to be dismantled. The fortress station that they have, it can be sent back to Terra as a new defensive station for the solar system. Better than having this useless Firehawks chapter that just, kills so many innocent people. No.
Sartak's demands were both backed by, and seemingly proved a source of inspiration to Huron, stoking the tyrant's imperious attitude and sending him on a series of long, rambling diatribes about the characters of his enemies, the Imperium, the state of political balance within it, and the enormities, severities, and licentiousness of the injuries and insults inflicted upon him personally.
Right.
Opining that only his view upon leadership could steer the Badab sector away from ruin, Huron went as far as to state that Ortis and the Red Scorpions should themselves accede to the wisdom of the tyrant.
Look, I kind of agree with Lufgt Huron right here. He has led the Maelstrom Zone into stability as much as he could. He needed more support from the Imperium of Man, which he never got. But I get him, that he has tried his best. He has succeeded in making sure that the Maelstrom Zone is as secure as possible. And he just needs that support to continue doing his job. Unfortunately, he's been dragged into this entire situation, partly due to his own creation, resorting to conflict instead of negotiating and politicking and being a diplomat about it all, and then finding the solution in a far longer way instead of going directly down the warpath. This is due to his own decisions, but I understand him, that with what he had, he tried his best, and the government of the day betrayed him. The government of the day did not listen. The government of the day, had no interest in his plight, and he saw no other way of, getting the attention that he needed. He had to secede.
Fearless as it was, and take up arms against the corrupt Imperium that would turn proud Astartes into no more than lick-spittle slaves to their own petty greed. It was all Ortis could do to reiterate the terms as stated in the Legantine writ, and the unassailable authority of the High Lords of Terra from whence it had come. An adjournment was called, with both parties withdrawing to separate compartments of the way station to confer. The course of events that followed remain shadowed to this day, becoming mired in the need to fulfill narratives, to support points of view, and to justify responses. This is partly due to the inciting incident. Loyalist communications to their strike cruiser suddenly ceased. Shortly thereafter, 3 unknown vessels appeared on Auspex sweeps recorded by that strike cruiser.
Unknown vessels?
2 were of a iconoclast pattern of raider ship, a known design utilized by heretic Astartes forces and the old legions sworn to the Dark Pantheon. The 3rd was of a design and mark unknown to Imperial records. Vector logs tracked their approach as emerging from the upper atmosphere of the gas giant Shedim, placing them essentially right beside the way station and far beyond the interdiction reach of either loyalist or secessionist strike cruisers.
I don't think Lufgt Huron would make deals with heretics Astartes. I just don't see it happening. I don't see Lufgt Huron, going to such levels for victory against the loyalist forces. I just don't think so. I thought maybe that this might be a trap set by Lufgt Huron, with these 3 vessels coming in as a surprise attack. But now that I'm hearing that they actually belong to heretic Astartes, I just don't think Lufgt Huron would do something like that. He would not go that far. He is still loyal to the Imperium of Man. He's still loyal to the to the Maelstrom Zone and humanity within the Maelstrom Zone. So I just don't think he would do something like that. But maybe these heretic Astartes have come to crash the party because, to sow chaos, confusion, and having their enemies weakened and, fighting amongst each other to a point where it would be an advantage for the heretic Astartes to, push into the Maelstrom Zone. Yeah.
It was an ambush, and a very effective one. The attackers raked the station with weapons fire, but their true aim was soon apparent. Boarding torpedoes launched an assault force comprised of renegades, heretics, and mutant scum. In the chaos and confusion that unfolded, notable casualties were incurred. Lord Commander Ortis perished aboard the station. As did the chapter master of the Mantis Warriors,
Whoa! And where's Lufgt Huron?
Sartak. Precisely how these warriors died is completely unknown. Both Loyalist and Secessionist strike cruisers made full burn for the station, with Chief Librarian of the Red Scorpions, Severin Loth, leading a desperate Loyalist assault to retrieve their chapter master, although by this point it was far too late. The anarchic three-way battle that developed saw all sides firing upon each other. At its height, the unknown starship, under punitive fire from the Secessionist strike cruiser, crashed into the way station, inflicting catastrophic damage to the asteroid it was built upon, causing it to begin to fracture. Severin Loth, too late to save his chapter master's life, was at least able to recover his remains, engaging in a fighting retreat against both the renegade raiders and the Astral Claws to flee the station before it disintegrated utterly. Huron appears to have departed the station altogether earlier, conducting the battle from within the safety of his strike cruiser.
So, the Red Scorpions have lost their chapter master. The Mantis have also lost their chapter master. Man, chapter masters are dying in this Badab war. More than I than I expected. I mean, really, that's a lot. Like, we lost the Marines errant chapter master, and now it's the Scorpion, Red Scorpions, and it's the Mantis. 3 chapter masters gone. Wow.
The event rapidly became known within Imperial circles as the Betrayal at Grief. Claim and counterclaim were flung across the astropathic network. Loyalists placed the blame squarely on the Secessionists, claiming the raiders to have been anything from a goaded plant to a false flag operation. And proof...
I still don't think so. I still don't think Lufgt Huron would do something like that. No, it just doesn't seem like something he would do. I mean, he's been fighting against, the vagrants of the Maelstrom Zone for such a long time. He's been fighting against the Xeno creatures, against the heretic forces in the Maelstrom Zone. Why would he all of a sudden now want to join forces or try to coerce or, lead traitor forces into a parlay? No. Because now he could have died in this entire altercation himself. He just lost a close confidant, the Mantis chapter master. He's dead. No, I don't think he would do something like this.
Of Huron's utter lack of honesty and good faith. The Secessionists, for their part, claimed the disaster to be an inquisitorial attempt to assassinate the tyrant of Badab.
Maybe, maybe, but I don't know. I don't think so. But Inquisitors are capable of doing something like this. Definitely, they are capable of it. Whatever means necessary for the victory of the Imperium of Man, they will do it. Definitely, they will do it. And no one is going to censure them. No one is going to probe and arrest the Inquisitor that might have initiated this plan. No one. Who? No one. But yeah, I just... We need more evidence. We need more information.
Internal Imperial communiques dispatched by Legate Frayne to his colleagues within the Ordo Hereticus simply were without conclusion. Frayne opines quite openly that the calamity may have seen the intervention of outside forces, possibly malefic in character, for whom the continuation of hostilities would be nothing but a boon.
Exactly.
Those for whom slaughter and bloodshed and destabilization were explicitly desirable outcomes.
I mean, you can imagine, the Maelstrom Zone is now exposed because the Maelstrom Warders are focusing on fighting against Loyalist forces. So many star systems, many regions within the Maelstrom Zone are left defenseless. Yes, they might have the Tyrant's Legion auxiliary forces defending the planets, but they are just simple human beings, and there's just not enough of them. You're gonna need those super soldiers to also defend those territories, especially from heretic Astartes, who might be coming there with entire fleets raiding those star systems that have been left vulnerable. So definitely this is something that I suspect was initiated by these heretic Astartes just to sow chaos and confusion and just to create more conflict between these two factions while they continue to raid and pillage the Maelstrom zone, because the Maelstrom warders are focusing their attention on the loyalist forces. I suspect that's what has happened here. I don't think Lufgt Huron would make a deal, or he would try to coerce the heretic forces into this parlay that he has made with the loyalist forces. I don't think he would do something like that. And also equally, I don't have enough information pertaining to the Inquisitor Frane. Yeah. I don't have enough information about him capable of, making deals with traitor Astartes and wanting them to attack this parlay meeting. I just don't have enough information on that. So my only option here is that the heretic forces have, made it as a decision that they're going to try and make sure to confuse the loyalist forces and the separatist forces, making them fight amongst each other while they focus on raiding the Maelstrom zone. Yeah.
It was, of course, not just the Imperium that had interests in the volume. Frayne did not rule out, however, secessionist culpability. Huron's ego would fully allow for such a plan, once the tyrant had had his proverbial soapbox upon which to pontificate. Frayne additionally put the possibility that Huron's target was not Ortiz, but his ally, Sartaq. The death of the Mantis Warriors chapter master would only serve to strengthen Huron's cause politically, casting doubt upon the Imperium's motives and hardening those of the secessionists.
Why would he want to eliminate his own ally like this? That with the elimination of the chapter master of the Mantis chapter, it makes that chapter even weaker. Why would he want to do that?
Inquisitorial agents had brought word to the Ordos of an apparent disquiet amongst the ranks of the Mantis Warriors, and a waning of their support for the secessionist cause in light of the ever-escalating conflict. Committed as the Mantis Warriors may have been to the defense of the Maelstrom Zone and their old brothers in the Warder chapters, the opposition to the High Lords of Terra to Huron's actions shook their faith in the Astral Clause's leadership. The death of their chapter master would thus inject a measure of base betrayal into the cocktail of motivations swirling around the war, and ensure the Mantis Warriors would only continue to heed the word of Huron.
No. I don't think he would do something like that. I don't think so. He is not a scheming type of warrior. Lufgt Huron is not a schemer. He doesn't use cloak and dagger. He'd rather kill you face to face. He wouldn't, backstab you. He's not that type of chapter master. For as long as he has been chapter master of the Astral Clause and the leader of the Maelstrom Warders, he's always been fighting from the front. He's always been, I'm just thinking about his past actions. Yes, there were some investigative flotillas being sent to the Maelstrom Zone, and they were there to investigate what's happening there, and those fleets or those flotilla ships were destroyed. and Lufgt Huron would give excuses to the Imperium of Man, pertaining to what happened to these vessels. And yeah, okay, fine, yes. He does have an element of deception and lying, and making it seem as if they are the affected party when they are actually the perpetrators, especially when it came to those investigative governmental units that came to the Maelstrom zone. So yes, there is some history of Lufgt Huron not really giving out the complete truth about what has happened to many of these flotillas that were sent to the Maelstrom zone. Okay, I am backtracking from what I've said before. Yes, it is possible. It is possible that Lufgt Huron might have planned this in some sort of way to eliminate a political threat to his hegemony over the Maelstrom waters. Yeah. That means I'll have to just rethink about everything that I've just said before. Yes, it's possible that Lufgt Huron might have made deals with these heretic Astartes, or he somehow coerced them into the grief system and allowed them to attack the station. It's possible. And it's also possible that he might have made sure that his ally, the chapter master of the Mantis Warriors, would be killed. It is possible. It is possible. Yes, guys, sorry, I'm backtracking. I'm backtracking. I was defending Lufgt Huron, but now that I'm remembering the past actions of his Maelstrom warders, yeah, I'm a bit suspicious of him now. Yeah.
Regardless of any actual party at fault, the disaster had utterly destroyed all possible compromise in the Badab War, only entrenching the commitment on both sides and annihilating all faith in future diplomacy. Escalation was inevitable, and soon secrets would come to light that would darken the clouds surrounding the secession even further. This video and this channel were made possible thanks to the very kind donations and support from my Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to help support the channel, head on over to patreon.com/Oculus Imperia. If you'd like to receive more updates about the channel and any future videos, you can contact me or follow me on Twitter @Oculus Imperia. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, comment, let me know your feedback, and as ever, thank you very much for watching.
Alright guys, that's it. That's it with the Badab War Part 5, the Betrayal at Grief, Warhammer 40,000 lore made on the Oculus Imperia YouTube channel. Yes, alright, the Salamanders, the Fire Angels, the Raptor, and the Red Scorpions chapters have arrived in the Maelstrom Zone, representing the Loyalist forces, and they are fighting against the Mantis, the Astral Claws, the Lamenters, and the Executioners. Yeah, the Firehawk chapter, I've said this before, they need to be disbanded. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's ever going to happen. The Marines Errant, they need to lick their wounds and, choose a new chapter master. The Carthan Shipping Cartel have been destroyed, and the sector or governor general, the sector general, right, or sector governor, and her entire family have been eliminated. They've been killed, executed. This the Imperium of Man is extremely ruthless and merciless, especially under the Inquisition. No one is innocent. Everybody is guilty in some sort of degree. And you are going to face the consequences one way or another. You are going to die, or you are going to be put into endangered servitude. And that's what's happened to the homeworld of the Carthan shipping cartel. That entire planet has now been told that for the next 6 generations your population will become slaves, essentially. You will be serving the Imperium of Man for the next 6 generations and probably beyond. So it's crazy. It's crazy. That's the types of judgments that have been laid upon the Carthan shipping cartel and all those who are associated with them. Yet the Astartes chapters, the the Marines Errant and the Firehawks have been left off scot-free. They can lick their wounds, they can repair themselves, and act as if nothing has happened. After what the Firehawks did on 2 planets. No, really, it just shows you the type of treatment humanity is subjugated to, while those who are supposed to protect us, the type of treatment they have from the government. It's night and day. And really that's just unfortunate. When it comes to this parlay meeting, in the beginning I was very suspicious about, why would, why would Lufgt Huron do this? Why would he do this now? Why would he want to parlay with the chapter master, or should I say the Lord Commander, Ortis of the Loyalist Forces? Why would he want to do something like this? Because it's too late to negotiate now. It's too late to talk. The Lord Commander has been given direct orders to eliminate the Maelstrom Warders. And talking like this with the Lord Commander, it's pointless, really. And as we heard, Lufgt Huron was trying to convince the Lord Commander of the Loyalist Forces that, join us, get away from this corrupt government of the Imperium of Man, and join us in protecting humanity, and protecting the Maelstrom Warder. Not Maelstrom Warder, but the Maelstrom Zone. Sorry, the Maelstrom Zone. And it didn't work out. And now this surprise of these heretic forces, jumping into system, or coming from behind the planet, if I'm not mistaken, behind the planet that the Grief Station is orbiting, and they started attacking the Loyalist forces. They started also attacking the Separatist forces, and in that entire commotion, the Lord Commander is killed. The chapter master of the Mantis Warriors is killed, and we're not really sure how or why this happened, and finger pointing. And I was defending Lufgt Huron. I just could not see him doing something like this, especially because he's been fighting against these forces for a long time, securing the Maelstrom Zone. He's been fighting against heretics Astartes. He's been fighting against chaos forces. So why would he use these chaos forces for his own political ends? It just didn't make sense to me, because I just saw Lufgt Huron as a very loyal Astartes to his duty and to humanity, and I just could not see him doing something like this. But after remembering the type of actions he's done against the Imperium of Man investigative governmental departments that were coming to the Maelstrom zone, how he decimated those fleets, those flotilla of those ships. It is possible that he might have done something like this to his own allies, and now he's lying. He's trying to make it sure that the Mantis warriors know who to blame. They don't blame him as the leader of the Maelstrom warders, but the Mantis warriors blame the Imperium of Man, or they just blame heretic forces for what has happened to their chapter master. So yes, there are instances in the past where Lufgt Huron has lied about what has happened to flotillas that were sent to investigate the Maelstrom zone. So, we can't rule out that he might have lied about this as well. What has happened to the chapter master of the Mantis warriors? I cannot rule that out. But if it is true, if this is something that he has done, then it's very disappointing. It is also very disappointing that he would be so ambitious, that he would be so power hungry, that he would kill his closest confidants, a chapter master of the Mantis warriors, for his own political ends. It would be very disappointing if he actually did something like that, because then everything that he's ever spoken about in terms of fighting for humanity, fighting for the Imperium of Man, fighting the good fight, really it is all just lies, and this is all just for his own power, power gain and his own political gain within the Maelstrom waters as well as the Maelstrom zone. So yeah, it would be very disappointing if this is just his own power hungry tactic, eliminating his equals, and making sure that he has the power of the Mantis warriors under his pocket. It would be very disappointing if that was true. But I suspect still that this has got nothing to do really with Lufgt Huron. I suspect that these Astartes, these traitor Astartes, knew that this parlay meeting was happening, and they wanted to disrupt, they wanted to cause chaos so that they could continue their raiding and invasion on the Maelstrom zone. Yeah, that's what I think. Because if the separatist forces and the loyalist forces have peace, that means the Maelstrom waters will be able to focus their attention on defending the borders of the Maelstrom zone. And the heretic Astartes won't be able to raid in the Maelstrom zone as before. Yeah. Because the only ones who are keeping them at bay are the Maelstrom warders. If the Maelstrom warders are distracted, they have that opportunity to invade once more and cause havoc within the Maelstrom zone. Yeah. But anything is possible. Anything is possible here. It might be the Inquisition, it might be Lufgt Huron, or it might be the initiative of the heretic Astartes. It could be any of these different scenarios. But the fact of the matter is that the Mantis warriors have lost their chapter master. The Red Scorpions have lost their chapter master. In this entire Badab war conflict, I think, what is it now? 3 chapter masters are dead. It's crazy. It's crazy. And yeah, can't wait to see what happens next in part 6 of the Badab war. Yeah, hopefully you guys will also be there, and hopefully I will be here next week to react to it. But yes, thank you again to Oculus Imperia for making this video, and also thank you to all those who give me messages of support and that have interest in my reactions to the Badab war. Really, you guys are giving me that confidence boost, and I really do like it. I really do like it. And yeah, hopefully I'll be here for part 6 next week as well. Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. Alright guys, that's it. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Oculus Imperia's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, give it a like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I'll see you guys hopefully next week. Fingers crossed. Alright, bye bye.